It's wonderful to be here. I love talking about dogs and about the science that is behind these incredible creatures and the things that they can do. So this was me a really long time ago, and kind of going in the wrong direction from dogs, but dogs have always been part of my life, and I think that they have really influenced a lot of my career paths. This is me just recently. You can tell with the COVID mask on, but throughout my entire path, it really has been science. From even grade school through high school, I participated in National Science Foundation summer programs. I got my Bachelor's of Science in Animal Science. I got my veterinary degree at The Ohio State University and a PhD in veterinary physiology at the University of Georgia. And I'm also a practicing veterinarian and a veterinarian and a scientist, which has been really exciting to be able to blend those two components of my career and to really be able to explore some things, particularly with dogs. This was probably one of my major career influences, and that was the disaster, the terrorist attacks of 9/11. I was part of a search and rescue team and was privileged enough to respond to Ground Zero with the canine team of the Pennsylvania Task Force, and really opened my eyes to the science that we needed to generate to help these dogs, to understand these dogs, to make sure that they were doing their job as best they could and as safely as they could. And so this work has really been the inspiration of a lot of the things that I'm currently doing here at the University of Pennsylvania. And we consider that the Penn Vet Working Dog Center the legacy of 9/11. This video kind of will give you an overview of what our program is.
The Working Dog Center is inspired by my care of the heroic dogs working at Ground Zero. The center opened on September 11th, 2012 to carry on their legacy and to support the dogs who serve us now. As a donor-driven research and education center, we provide critical tools to enhance the success of domestically raised dogs. Ensuring detection dog health through research on genetics, olfaction, and disease prevention is central to our mission. And we are pioneering means of improving performance through fitness, conditioning, and behavior modification. Throughout it all, our training methods rely on the use of positive reinforcement. As part of the University of Pennsylvania, we take our commitment to education to heart. Every person and dog that works and trains at the center is immersed in a powerful, inclusive, educational culture based on learning and growth. We also collaborate with other programs to advance knowledge of working dogs through the exchange of important ideas and valuable lessons. Our overarching goals are to provide the tools and knowledge to enhance the health and performance of all working dogs and to strengthen their relationship with their human partners. Simply put, our dogs save lives. They are trained to rescue victims of disasters, detect explosives and narcotics, serve and protect our communities, and even sniff out ovarian cancer. Our dogs start their education with general foundations, or as we like to say, their liberal arts degree. Our trainers serve as career counselors, helping to determine the best major for each dog's future. And as a research organization, we record, document, and measure everything so we can refine and share it broadly. The Working Dog Center is self-sustaining through individual, government, foundation, corporate gifts and grants. Gifts of all sizes have an impact. So, how can you help us be friends to man's best friend? Donations are always appreciated, of course, and our volunteer opportunities are virtually limitless. If you're a professional studying working dogs, let's collaborate. All of our canine students live off campus but come to school daily. We're always looking for foster homes where they can continue to learn, love, and grow. Or you can buy one of our dogs as your partner and new best friend. Help our dogs save lives while changing your life through the Penn Vet Working Dog Center.
All right, so here's the quiz question. Who has the best nose? We're talking about dogs here, but are they really the best? And so what do we have? Bears, grizzly bears, sharks, elephants, or dogs? Who do you think has the best nose? give you a second to think about that. It's a great question to pose. And you know, one thing we want to ask is, what do we mean by the best? And the best may be the most sensitive. We know elephants are incredibly sensitive, and they have the genetic material to be really one of our best. So we have an answer of a shark and a bear. Yeah. They're all incredible. Bears can, you know, especially grizzly bears can detect odors that they say 10 miles away. The problem that we have, and when we think about best, when we think about who is best to work with us, it's really hard to find foster homes for the bears. And to clean up and feed the elephants would cost me a fortune. And I've never seen a shark working in an airport to search for bombs. So, you know, I think we've got our work cut out for us, because all of these other species are incredible, but the dog has it all. The dog is able to actually do what we need to do in an environment that we need. So when we think about how do dogs do it, how do dogs actually smell out the odors that we're interested in, I like to use the phrase that dogs smell in color. So as humans, we're incredibly visual. And so we tend to look at a complex picture like this Where's Waldo, and we can see all the individual people, we can see all the colors and the shapes, we can pick out all of the different things and recognize that, yep, there's a person there, and there's a light there, and there's a cake there, and you know, a strong man over here, and we're looking for Waldo. So we're looking for the little guy with the red and white striped hat and the round glasses, but we can figure that out. Give us enough time and we'll kind of focus in. So if you haven't seen Waldo, there he is up in the upper right hand corner. We can do that because we're processing this information and recognizing what's familiar. Dogs do the same sort of thing with odors. So they basically see the odors with their noses, and they can take in a very complex background and identify something that they have been trained to recognize. How do they do this? Well, they're so incredibly built for olfaction. Their anatomy, their genetics, everything is really designed to evaluate and process the world through their nose. Just even their nose and the way it's designed, that they can take in air through their nostrils and kind of blow it out through the sides. When they breathe in, a portion of that breath is actually directed to the olfactory epithelium. This is the area where all of these olfactory receptors are stationed, and they're capturing these odors and processing that information and sending it to the olfactory bulb in the brain, which in the dog is, you know, huge. It's so much larger than what we have in humans. And then the big thing that really sets the dog apart from some of our other species is that processing and that cognition and their communication with humans. The fact that they will tell us what that information is, because cats are also really good, but they don't like to tell us necessarily what they're finding, whereas dogs are very much willing to work with us and tell us what they're finding. So VOCs are volatile organic compounds. These are basically the chemicals that make up things that we smell. And these VOCs are what settle in on these olfactory receptors and trigger a response in the brain. And it's been a long time that people have recognized that certain diseases have certain smells. And really, you know, probably back in the early days of the Greeks that were thinking about early medicine, they were using odors and, you know, using that to diagnose diseases, recognize different problems. And I think we've lost a lot of that in our modern day, but dogs can actually help us to rethink what that is. And so one of the areas that we work on that's been really exciting and interesting are looking at those smells of diseases, or the volatile organic compounds associated with disease. What we've done in our research lab is that we've actually studied a number of different medical problems with the dogs. And the first one that we started to explore was ovarian cancer. And ovarian cancer is a huge problem. It's actually a very common cancer of women. And the problem that we have is that there isn't a test for an early diagnosis. And so if people are diagnosed early, they have a great success rate as far as survival because they can undergo surgery. But most people are diagnosed late. And so that would be at stage 3 or stage 4. And unfortunately, their 5-year survival is really low. But what we thought is, well, maybe there's an odor associated with this disease, and the dogs might be able to help us identify that. And indeed, we have been able to train dogs on blood samples from patients with ovarian cancer and compare that to patients with no cancer and patients that have a benign condition of their ovaries, and the dogs can tell us and identify which ones have the cancer. So it's very exciting, and it's certainly something that we're working with some researchers in the physics department to convert this into an electronic sensing device that might actually be eventually used in the clinical situation. Another area that is important is bacterial infections. And we know that when you have a total hip replacement or a total knee replacement, there's a chance that you could actually have an infection associated with that that's called a biofilm. These biofilm infections are kind of like slime, and they're really difficult to diagnose because they tend to be encapsulated, which means that they hide under a blanket of the slime. And so typical cultures are not as good as they are for other types of bacterial infections. And what we found is that there is an odor that is produced by the bacteria, and the dogs can recognize this odor, and they recognize it in biological samples, either blood samples or even tear film from animals and people with these bacterial biofilm infections. So another exciting area where dogs are helping push the boundaries and helping drive the development of other methods that they can use for use in the hospitals for diagnosing these. With us, these dogs are really serving as a proof of concept. We don't anticipate that they'll actually be working in the hospitals. We are also very interested in animal health. And so one of the diseases that we have been working with is a disease caused by a prion. So these misfolded proteins, really crazy sorts of diseases. And we know that there's the disease called BSE or bovine spongiform encephalitis, which is something that we're really concerned about as humans being able to contract it. In deer, they have chronic wasting disease caused by a prion. And at this point, we don't think that people can contract it, but we're not sure. And what we're doing, and we have successfully done, is we've actually trained dogs to recognize the smell of deer that have this disease. And we use actually fecal samples or scat samples to train the dogs. And that way they'll be able to go out into the fields and identify if there's a field that has deer that are positive for this disease. And so we're very excited about that. We've just completed our proof of concept, and we'll be moving on to training some dogs to work in the field. I think probably in a timely manner, COVID-19 is something that everyone's interested in, and you know, how can we diagnose this quickly and really try and help get things back to normal. And we did a study last year where we wanted to determine if dogs could identify a chemical scent associated with COVID-19 infection. And we did this in 2 parts. We started first with hospitalized patients, and we were able to get samples of urine and saliva from those patients. And then we did a big study where we collected sweat samples where people actually wore t-shirts in their homes. And if they were positive, they would wear a t-shirt, and if they were negative, they would wear a t-shirt. And we had over 400 people participate all over the country, sending us these shirts. And in both of these studies, regardless of whether we used the urine, the saliva, or the sweat samples from the t-shirts, the dogs were very good at identifying which of the patients had COVID and which of them didn't. So it was a very exciting thing for us to be able to say, yes, there's clearly a difference. But our bigger question was, can we actually translate this into having dogs out in the real world, in schools, in airports, screening? And we find that there's a lot more science that still needs to be done in order to do that in a safe and effective way. And I think the TSA is the model for being able to do that, and they can tell you how much effort it takes to have these dogs reliably and efficiently search people for something like explosives. And I think that COVID-19 is a much harder odor than explosives even. This is a video of one of the dogs. We're using a scent wheel here, so the dog is independently going around the wheel, sniffing, and when they find it, boom, they freeze. It's right here. So this was one of the urine samples, and so when they get a reward, they get food. So we had 8 dogs in this study with the urine and the saliva. That beep tells them they got it right, and they get the food. You can see the dogs are loving this. This is such a fun game for them. But not all of the dogs are quite as focused. And you can see this dog's kind of like, la-di-da, la-di-da. Oh, right, that's right, I'm sniffing. I'm supposed to be working here. And so then she finally realizes it's time. And so, you know, each dog is an individual, and they're really capable, and some of them are more motivated than others. So that's just a beginning of an overview. But if you want to learn more about our program, we have a very active Facebook and Instagram and Twitter account, and our website also provides lots of information, including links to lots of our publications and other research projects that we're working on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Otto. That was, I mean, I'm blown away with just like the amount of research you're doing there. So thank you all for joining us.